How you guys doing? I'm Chris Ignato. Now this is a bit of a review video for the gear I use while going out on my reptile and amphibian adventures. Stay tuned. Hi guys, thanks for stopping by. Now people often ask me what kind of gear I bring with me when I'm going out looking for reptiles and amphibians and filming my videos. So in this video I'm going to talk about my favorite gear and the stuff I use most often. First and foremost, I'm going to start off with the cameras. Now here's the camera I shoot almost every one of my videos on YouTube with. It's the Olympus Stylus TG-870. I'm in love with this camera. It's really great for video, but overall it's really good and ready to do whatever I ask it to. It's a wonderful camera and it's small enough to keep in my pocket or in a little pouch on my side. It shoots full HD video at 1080p, which is actually better than 1080i because there's pretty much just more information in the video. And it shoots wonderful macro video and photos, and I'll give you some examples of them in a minute or two. But there's my ring, and I can zoom in on that, and it looks really good. So this is what I use to film my insect videos and spring peepers and, you know, dusky salamanders and all those kind of things. I usually go to the program mode, but it's also got scene selection, which the TG-4 also has. It's got live composite, which is great for capturing star trails. It's got interval shooting, which is pretty much like time-lapse. And it's got plenty of other settings. Macro, e-portrait, which is like soft focus for portraiture. Regular portrait settings, backlight HDR, macro for underwater. Plenty of underwater scenes because this camera is fully submergible and up to 50 feet of water, and you could drop it from a height of 7 feet onto hard ground and it'll still be okay. Great camera. It takes still photos in 16 megapixels, but the TG-4 is far superior when it comes to taking still photos. Now it comes with a really wide angle lens, which is awesome. It's the equivalent of a 21mm lens on, say, a DSLR, but it's an f3.5, so it's not really good in low light, not as good as the TG-4. It has a 5x optical zoom, but the TG-4 has a 4x optical zoom. Now it's got a built-in stereo microphone up here, but it's not exactly the best microphone in the world. However, I do use it in pretty much all my videos, and it's sufficient. This camera has a built-in GPS, so you can actually record exactly where you're photographing something or finding a specimen. And it's also got Wi-Fi control, so you can upload photos straight to your phone. The 870 is by far my favorite one, and I can't wait till the next model comes out. It has a tripod mount here, and the TG-4 also has a tripod mount in the middle. But it's also got another tripod mount on the end, so you can mount it for taking selfies. What's really useful about this camera is the flip screen. I use this screen all the time for videoing myself. You can see my TG-4 right there. And it's really, really good for vlogging and taking selfies. It's got a programmable button down here that I actually just keep for taking photos. It's really good for selfies, and it's good to program it for shooting video or macro or whatever you want. Both cameras have a very, very secure watertight seal for where you keep your batteries and your memory card. Okay? You lock it up here, and then there's another lock. And when you turn it on and it's not locked, the camera actually warns you, hey, this thing's open, don't put it in water. There's only a couple of things that I could recommend them improving on, but I'm in love with this camera, and it gives me really, really great footage for the type of work I do. A great herping camera, and great for filming nature videos. Now let me give you an example of the macro work I could do with the 870. This is my little mat that I'm filming on, and I'm going to use the macro setting and actually get some up-close footage of it. Now that's not bad. However, I can also zoom in. Now this is the TG-4, and it is great for close-up photography and macro work. I really like this camera for those reasons, and I'll show you some examples in a minute. Like the 870, it's got many different scene settings. In fact, you've got a snow setting, panoramas, backlight HDR, portrait, e-portrait, landscape, interval shooting, which is like time-lapse, and live composite, which is really cool. It gives you star trails and stuff like that. Handheld starlight, night scene, and plenty of other settings. Really good camera. It also has a fireworks setting, and that's a lot of fun. Now this camera is a 2.0, and it's about the equivalent of a 25mm lens, and it's really good for low light. However, I like the video quality of the TG-870 a lot better than the TG-4. What's really neat about this camera, however, is you can actually undo this, remove this, and actually switch lenses out. There's another lens that you can get for this, a teleconverter, and there might actually be a macro lens, but I can't remember. You can also put a ring flash on here for close-up photography, which is really neat. With the microscope setting, you could get insane close-ups with this camera. I'll show you some of those in a second, but just to give you an idea, there's my hand, right? I can zoom in on that, and I can get a lot closer than that. Now it's got settings up here that allow you to do the microscope setting. It's got focus bracketing, which takes 10 frames at once and allows you to choose which one you want that's more in focus. It's also got focus stacking, which also takes 10 frames, and it stacks them all together to have quite a good depth of field. Then it's got the microscope control, so you can get even closer, and again, the regular microscope setting. Really fun stuff, and as I said, I'll show you in a minute how that is. Now, like the TG-870, this also films in full 1080p. I gotta say, however, I prefer video with the 870 over the TG-4. I just think the 870 is superior when it comes to video. Like the 870, this is a 16 megapixel camera, but what sets it apart from the rest, it actually photographs in RAW format if you want it to, which is great for editing. Being a 2.0, this camera is better in low light. It allows more light to come in, and you just can shoot in darker scenes, especially when you're taking still photos. Really good for that. Both cameras can be dropped from 7 feet up, and this camera is fully submergible in up to 50 feet of water. I like the TG-4, it's a pretty good camera, but the TG-5 is now out. I gotta get my hands on one of those someday and play around with it. I usually film or photograph in program mode, but you do have some manual controls. You can select ISO 100 all the way up to 6400 ISO. That's pretty useful too, but I usually use 100 to 400 for almost everything I do. And it's got plenty of other features, including aperture priority. You could also change your aspect ratio from 16:9, 4:3, 3:2, and 1:1. But I usually keep it on 16:9 for YouTube's sake. Now the TG-4 also has a built-in Wi-Fi for uploading photos to your phone, and it has a built-in GPS, so you can record those locations. Now here's an example of how close I can get with the TG-4. Again, the sun's casting a shadow, and unfortunately it's not giving you the best example, but you get the idea. And I can zoom in a lot more. That's pretty cool. I could get even closer than that. As far as the still photos are concerned, they're pretty close, but when you compare a lot of photos, the TG-4 looks a lot better. Now here are two video clips compared to each other. As you can see, the TG-4 looks a lot noisier, and the 870 is smoother, but it's a little bit darker. This isn't the best example, but you get the idea. Now please keep in mind, almost everything you see me film is with my TG-870, and the bulk of this video is also shot with the TG-870. I often use a Sony camera for some of my videos, but I lost that camera when we lost the house. I can't find it anywhere. So these are two cameras I use most of the time. This is actually a Cabela's bag, and I have it packed up with field guides and all sorts of other things so that if the conditions are just right, I can grab the bag, hop in the car with my girlfriend or something, and have all the stuff I need for finding these salamanders and other things. So, now, I plan on having links to all the gear in this video in the description below, so please scroll down, check out the description, and you'll find links to the cameras, the field guides, probably this bag and my boots, and all sorts of other stuff. Now, let's show you what's in the bag. For starters, I really like this bag. It's got all sorts of zippers on it and compartments. Okay, and this one I've just got a small thing of hand sanitizer, which is really useful if you were handling say some turtles or something like that, but I don't recommend handling any of these creatures. It's not really good for their health, and sometimes it's not good for your health. But turtles and snakes and things can sometimes harbor salmonella, and if I'm doing a program with students and everything, I like to have hand sanitizer on me in case somebody does handle an animal. But 9 times out of 10, we will not touch them. In this little pocket here, I've got tripod mounts and things like that, things for my video light and all sorts of other little things, and maybe some spare batteries and stuff. Then, now in this side pocket here, I keep a rain poncho, and I have a couple of disposable rain ponchos too that you buy for 99 cents at, say, Walmart or something. Usually when you go out looking for frogs and salamanders and stuff, it's dark, rainy nights, and of course you want to stay dry. A couple of extra ponchos, because if you bring a friend with you, they often forget to bring a poncho, and they actually forget to bring headlights too, spare flashlights. So I keep extras of those with me at all times. And say something happens to one of them, I've got a backup. So as you see, the bag has a side pocket here, another pocket here, and a smaller pocket here. And then it's got a mesh pocket here that you can keep some stuff in, like maps and things, and you can just quickly see them by looking through the mesh. Something else I really recommend to have with you when you're out herping or doing anything really is to have a container. This is really good to photograph any of the specimens that you find, and it's great for transporting them from one spot to another. Say you find some pollywogs or fish in a little puddle on a sidewalk and you want to rescue them, these are really useful for that. I do recommend that you wash them out afterwards, because say you're holding a spotted salamander or something in one of these containers and then you let it go and you put a different creature in there, there could be toxins that affect the other creatures. So always rinse them out when you're done. Let me show you what's in the main body of this bag. A windbreaker, and this one is reflective. Now, it's good to have reflective windbreakers and things like that, because if you're out at night, or say you're by the side of the road helping to rescue salamanders crossing the road and stuff from traffic, or say a turtle, you put on that reflective jacket or vest, and the cars can see you from quite a distance. That keeps you from getting killed along with the salamander. Keep that in mind. I got a pair of waterproof cargo pants, okay? These are basically ripstop nylon, and they're pretty much just rain pants to wear in case it's one of those really wet nights. Now I have my LED video light, which is really useful. I get about an hour's worth of charge using this light at full capacity with the batteries I'm using. It's a great light, and if you're using it at say 50% or something, it lasts a lot longer. Really great light, and it doesn't really cause the harsh shadows that some of the other lights use. I have a spare umbrella. You never know when you need one of these, especially when you don't want your camera to get wet. Spare light, which is also useful, and this one's magnetic and you can hang it on like a tree branch or something. You can pick these up at like gas stations or just about anywhere. Spare batteries for my headlights. Here's my Energizer headlamp that I use almost all the time. This thing is really useful. It's got a red setting and a white setting. And the switch, I keep tape on it so it doesn't turn on in my backpack. But you slide it back and forth to turn it on, and it doesn't make much noise. Those push button ones are often louder, and if you're filming certain creatures, it can scare them away. An awesome book, Discovering Amphibians. It's a lot of fun. I might talk about that in a minute. Now this is just a great all-round field guide to have. It includes different regions, mine is the Mid-Atlantic region, but you can get some for like New England. There's also an edition for the Southeast and all throughout the country. And this is really great. It covers all sorts of stuff. You know, it's got a little bit of info about the different seasons, you know, star charts, all sorts of species. It's got flowers and plants and trees. It includes, of course, salamanders and amphibians and snakes, lots of birds. And then what's really neat is at the back it goes into different parks for your region, you know, notable parks and places to go, and even includes their contact information and stuff like that. Really great books. I use these a lot. Now, in my opinion, the best field guide to keep for reptiles and amphibians, and almost any other type of field guide, are the Peterson field guides. These are really good, and they never steer you wrong. Now, this Audubon one only goes into a little bit. It shows some of the salamanders for the area, some of the insects. The Petersons are really in depth. This one is for Eastern and Central North America, and it's got plates so you can actually, find the species you're looking for pretty quickly. And then it actually has pages that go in depth on each species, where they can be found, how to tell the differences, for ones that look similar. And like I said, the different regions that you can actually find them in. Peterson field guides are really useful and extremely reliable. If you're into herping, you have to have one of these with you, at least in my opinion. Now, I said I'd talk about this book, and well, that's what I'm doing now. This is by John Himmelman. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's called Discovering Amphibians. I really love this book, especially when I'm cooped up in the winter getting excited for the next herping season. He's got a whole bunch of stories. He talks about the etiquette and his experience that gave him the passion and love for reptiles and amphibians, particularly frogs and salamanders of the Northeast. He's from New England, and he's got a lot of really good stories about them. He talks about the great migrations, the salamander rains, where they all come out by the thousands to find vernal pools and breed. Then he's got species accounts, where he actually talks about each species found in the Northeast, and some of their habits and lifestyles. And then he goes on to talk about conservation and how to find the different places, and even road crossings, and different programs you might be able to do with your local government to protect the species. Color photographs of the different species throughout different life stages and cycles. This is a really fun book. It's probably my favorite book on amphibians. I really love this book. It's a great read. He's got an awesome sense of humor, and it's just awesome. Love this book. Highly recommend it. Now, really useful for my videos is a tripod. This particular tripod comes from Amazon, and I love the thing. It barely weighs anything. It comes with a protective carrying pouch, and I strap that to the side of my backpack and bring it just about everywhere because, as I said, it barely weighs anything. A friend of mine got this for me, and I love it. So here the tripod folds up nice and small, and it fits right into this pouch that I strapped to the side of my backpack. Now, as I said, I highly recommend you bringing waders because you can get up close and personal with the swamp, so you can really explore them a lot better when you're wearing waterproof boots with legs on them. They're really good. They take a little bit of practice, and you have to be really careful where you step so you don't harm any wildlife or take a fall and destroy everything you're carrying on you. Not fun. Now, they just slide on over your pants as you would expect. Like so. And then this strap here fastens to your belt nice and secure. There you go. Now you're ready to explore the wetlands and the swamps and have a lot of fun. So this is what they look like. They got nice waterproof bottoms. They're felt lined. And they're really comfortable. In fact, they're kind of warm. In the summer, these things really work up a sweat. But they're really fun. And I highly recommend you have a pair of these if you're really into fishing or just going into swamps and wetlands. Something that's very important that I highly recommend is to bring a friend with you. Nothing makes it more fun than having a friend who's got a similar interest and can also help you look for the salamanders and snakes and frogs and all those kind of good things. And I also recommend you join a herping group or reptile and amphibian forum. There's lots of groups and enthusiasts in pretty much every corner of the country and every corner of the globe for that matter. There's a few of them that I'm a member of, and sometimes they go out in groups on field trips and expeditions looking for the things, and it's really fun. I highly recommend having a friend with you, and it's also good for safety. Say you get stuck or you fall, or you're standing next to the road and a friend's like, watch out, there's a car coming for you. It helps a lot. Now, of course, you don't need these fancy cameras and gear. Like I said, you can go out just by yourself or with a friend, and that's generally all you need. Some knowledge, some common sense, some safety and etiquette. Keep in mind, I don't recommend people handling wild animals, but if you handle any frogs or salamanders, it's good to wet your hands first because the salts and things in our hands can actually harm them. A notebook is something I always carry with me. It helps me remember, different things I want to do, species I find, where I found them, weather conditions, and all that kind of good stuff. You never know how valuable these things are. I use mine all the time. Maps are another great thing to carry with you. And please, one thing that all reptile and amphibian enthusiasts know about, you don't share the locations of your finds on social media or do so publicly. You know, please do it private if at all. You can share it with some of the clubs you're a member of, but it's not good to share it publicly because people do go out and catch them to keep as pets or sell as pets, and there's a lot of habitat destruction that goes on from some people that don't understand the etiquette. It's also really good to scrub down your waders and water boots and stuff like that afterwards, because if you're in an area that has chytridiomycosis, you can spread it from habitat to habitat, and that's wiping out amphibians worldwide. So to quick recap, like I said, all you really need to do to have a great time looking for reptiles and amphibians is to bring yourself, maybe a raincoat and some warm clothing, depending on what time of year it is. A friend is great to have with you, maybe a camera like some of the ones I recommended, or even your cell phone camera. It's just a lot of fun. It's a hobby that's spreading like wildfire. And once again, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'm Chris Signato, signing out.